Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Top 10 Signs You Might Need a New SSE Vendor. My name is Dan Meyer. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Versa. Co-presenting with me today is John Taylor. JT is our Director and Principal of Security. So thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your time. For our session today, we'd like to talk about some of the challenges and maybe some of the cracks that you might be seeing with your current SSE solution. And we'd like to provide you a few insights about how Versa SSE might be able to help. A quick couple of housekeeping points. If you want to review this webinar in the future or share it with your colleagues, it'll be available on the versanetworks.com website in about 24 hours. We will also send out today's deck and email as soon as we're finished here, so stay tuned. And if you have any questions or comments, please drop them in the questions section. We'll circle back and answer them at the end of the session. Okay, once again, for those of you who might just be joining us, welcome to the Versa webinar, Top 10 Signs You Might Need a New SSE Vendor. And with that, let's dive in. I want to start today's session with a quick review of what SSE is, maybe, or what it's supposed to be, and kind of do a level set. So SSE really kicked off when digital transformation started, and we began to move our data and applications to the cloud and started to use the internet as our network. And it didn't make sense anymore with that architecture to backhaul all of our traffic back to a centralized data center and run it through a series of security appliances and then hairpin it back out to the internet. So instead, we wanted to access the internet directly from our office locations or from our home offices or from the road, right? And security didn't work that way at that time. So what we did is we moved all those security appliances and put them in the cloud in a gateway where we could apply security and policy and enforcement. And we called that SSE, Security Service Edge. At the end of the day, the primary goal of SSE is to provide secure access to web, cloud, and private applications for all users and all devices, regardless of location. There's a handful of primary use cases for SSE, just to tick through them quickly. Secure access to private applications, often replacing legacy VPN. Secure access to SaaS applications, enforcing internet usage policies. Right, an emerging use case in that area is identifying shadow Gen AI. Right, so right now, there's a lot of folks are going out to Gen AI apps, right, and controlling access and preventing data leaks out to those Gen AI sites. Threat protection, of course, including things like blocking access to known malicious websites and phishing sites, stopping malware and ransomware files from being downloaded, and using real-time filtering and inspection of web traffic to identify and stop threats. Securely connecting remote workers, right, the other end of the equation of connecting to private apps, right. Making sure that it's, you're authenticating who's coming in and securely connecting them to private apps. And finally, stopping data leaks, right? Whether it's malicious or accidental. The use cases that we just walked through are delivered by a set of capabilities that historically have been standalone products, right? Cloud Access Security Brokers, or CASB, act as a security enforcement point between your users and cloud applications, right? Including shadow IT, visibility, access management, and data security. Secure Web Gateways, or SWIG. This protects users accessing the internet by enforcing security policies and preventing web-based threats. Next-Gen Firewall is a service that provides a strong additional layer of security for users accessing the internet. Things like advanced threat protection, intrusion detection and prevention, and the ability to defend not just web traffic, but any internet traffic across any port or protocol. Right? And data loss prevention. In the context of SSE, this is all about stopping malicious or inadvertent data leaks of sensitive information. And finally, Zero Trust Network Access, or ZTNA. This provides remote access while employing least privileged access principles and continuous risk assessment. JT is going to drill into this more later on in the next set of slides, so stay tuned for that. So now let's talk a little bit about, with that foundation, where are we in the industry today? What is the state of the industry today? Some might argue that SSE has been around for a long time, right? The reality is it's been with us since about 2019, when several Gartner analysts published this seminal report, The Future of Network Security. The industry itself is reaching a level of maturity where innovation is starting to slow down a bit. You'll see everybody's starting to get the same consistent set of capabilities. The market is pretty sizable. According to Deloro, almost $5 billion in 2023 alone. And there's about 10 world-class SSE vendors who made the cut for the latest Gartner Magic Quadrant, which you can see on the left side here. And then there's another 10 or 20 vendors that are also out there that didn't make the cut on the Magic Quadrant, but are also delivering these SSE services to the world, right? So that said, by our estimate, only about 20% of the market is penetrated so far with full SSE suites, and the rest of the world is using legacy or standalone point products that they kind of cobble together into a homegrown security fabric, right? And so this kind of begs the question: is your SSE solution starting to show some cracks, right? Let's walk through a few of the signs that you might need to look around for a new SSE solution. Whoop, JT, our build is broken here.
Hit next. You'll see.
Hit next. Let's see where we go. All right, let's start with number 10, and we'll show you number 5 and 7 along the way. Right, so number 10, you're seeing too many security incidents, right? If your SSE solution, SSE solutions need to continuously update and adapt with threat intelligence and a lot of other things, right? And threat signatures. And vendors that are slow to respond to new threats can leave customers vulnerable. So if you're seeing a rise in security incidents, it may indicate that your current SSE solution is no longer effective, right? So this may be particularly true if you're still using a first generation VPN solution to manage your remote access or some other things. But if you're seeing these problems, you might need to look around for another solution. Number 9, your users are complaining about latency and slow applications, right? Some SSE providers might simply have a limited number of POPs, which adds latency to reach distant access points. Other SSE solutions maybe centralize their security inspection processes in a small handful of data centers with traffic forwarded from their points of presence, right? So even while they might brag about a lot of POPs, right, they actually don't have a lot of compute capacity, right? And this can lead to latency. And other vendors, right, their solutions might route traffic over the public internet for inspection and policy enforcement with no ability to guarantee acceptable performance. So if there's challenges with latency on the open internet that they can't manage, then there might be issues there. So if your SSE solution is slowing down application performance, but most importantly, if you're hearing from your users that they're frustrated with slow performance in applications, it might be time to look around for another SSE solution. Number 8, your current SSE has a fragmented architecture, right? So what this means is there's a number of SSE solutions that are built on kind of fragmented and bolted together architectures where they've taken a lot of the pieces and put them together and integrated them behind the scenes, right? So this can create a range of problems. For example, one vendor has separate products and networks for their ZTNA solution, which is hosted on AWS, and then their internet security, which is hosted on Equinix, right? 2 separate infrastructures. Each product requires its own management console. Each network requires separate authentication. And because the ZTNA solution has limited security capabilities, this leaves private applications vulnerable to malware spreading across the network, right? So think about this. If your vendor has been bolted together an SSE solution from piece parts that aren't that well integrated, not built on a unified platform architecture, it may be time to find another solution. All right, number 7. We finally get to number 7, JT. You're spending too much time on your SSE. You're spending too much on your SSE solution, right? So this is the cost issue. There's a number of very high cost brands in the SSE market today. And there's a lot of stories around about, inflexible and inflated pricing, hidden fees, complex licensing models that combine per user and per bandwidth elements, frequent licensing changes, and unexpected cost increases at renewal time. So if the cost of your SSE solution is continuing to rise, it might be worth considering a more cost-effective vendor. All right, let's head to number 6. Your technical support and response times are poor, right? If you're getting slow or unhelpful customer support, particularly during critical incidents, that's an issue. Right? Some customers have reported problems like long resolution times, insufficient guidance from the tech support folks, a lack of responsiveness. If you're having these kinds of problems, then maybe it's time to look around for another vendor to help you. All right, number 5. Your SSE vendor has a weak or limited backbone POP network. A strong POP backbone network is essential to ensure low latency, high availability, and consistent enforcement across diverse geographical locations, right? But POP coverage, it tends to be a mixed bag in the SSE market. Some vendors just have fewer POPs than you might expect. Some vendors limit the number of POPs their customers can use. And a number of vendors don't run all of their services on all of their POPs, right? So think about this. If your vendor has a weak POP network, this might be a reason to evaluate another alternative, particularly if you need global coverage. All right, number 4, your SSE solution is complex to deploy and manage. Deploying some SSE solutions can be complex and time consuming. So some examples, some products require the customer to create a huge number of IPsec tunnels to connect offices and branches. Others only provide support for a limited set of authentication mechanisms, or maybe they lack single sign-on. Still, maybe some others require on-prem deployment and maintenance of multiple virtual machines in order to deliver application connectivity. So many SSE solutions lack a unified console and a control plane for administration. So instead of requiring multiple, which then requires multiple consoles to manage the different solution components, right? So there's a lot of different things that might be happening here, right? So if your SSE solution doesn't provide an easy deployment and management capability, then it could be time to look around for a change and reduce your admin burden and your overhead costs. All right, number 3, you haven't seen much innovation coming out of your SSE vendor lately. So most SSE solutions incorporate a basic set of security capabilities, but not every vendor is investing in the innovation needed to keep these capabilities on the cutting edge. A surprising number of vendors lack common SSE features, things like sandboxing, advanced DLP functionality, digital experience management, and customizable reporting. Right? These are capabilities that are becoming standard, but not everybody has them today necessarily. And even fewer support more advanced capabilities like security for dynamic protocols, things like SIP, right? AI-based threat detection, and maybe security across 5G and satellite networks. If your legacy solution lacks some of these features, it may be time for an upgrade. So take a look at who's innovating in the space. All right, let's go to number 2. Your SSE solution has limited reporting and analytics, right? You can't secure what you can't see. Many vendors only provide limited visibility into security events, right? And poor reporting capabilities make it really challenging to assess your security posture and respond to threats appropriately. Some SSE vendors in particular, with disparate products, are really not able to unify user, device, and application risk to present a singular view. And this leaves security teams with the fragmented risk insights that are not as useful as you try and stop threats, right? So if your vendor struggles to find and offer detailed visibility and analytics, you might want to consider some alternatives. And number 1, your SSE vendor has a weak SASE roadmap. SASE represents the future of SSE, right? It offers a unified, scalable, and flexible approach to securing and managing modern enterprise networks across all environments. It converges security and networking, right? It combines SSE and SD-WAN to deliver cost efficiency and improve performance while addressing the complexities of the digital landscape, right? And it's a really important thing. SASE is where the future is going. And so one of the things you ought to think about with your SSE platform is it future-proofed? Is there a path to get to the SASE future, right? That future state that you need to have converged security and networking. Some vendors have claimed that SD-WAN is dead, but then turned around and launched an SD-WAN product, although it's kind of lightweight. Others have bought and bolted on SMB lightweight products. Others are just waving their hands a little bit and just forwarding traffic. At the end of the day, if your SSE vendor has not embraced the concept of SASE and provided a compelling convergence roadmap, you may want to find a different vendor. All right, so these are kind of the top 10 signs that we've seen that you might need to look at a new SSE vendor, right? So now, as a next step, what can Versa do to help? So for this next section, I want to bring in JT to help us drill down into some of the practical and valuable insights we have around what we can do there. JT, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Good. All right, let's go and let's tick through these one at a time and see what we can do, right? So if you're seeing too many security incidents, where can we help there, JT?
So let's start first, right, with kind of what's going on in industry right today, right? So I think everybody has heard of this defense in depth. It's been around probably for 2-3 decades now. Yes, that's almost as long as I've been in the industry, which makes me, feel old. My bones, right, and so forth. But defense in depth is still around. I talk to customers daily that they have a different solution, whether it be for advanced threat, they have a different solution for CASB. They're still utilizing on-prem next-gen firewalls. They have a NAC solution that they're trying to integrate with all of this. So it's a bunch of point products, right? That's really creating this bespoke architecture and so forth. And then they're trying to figure out, well, how do I get it all to talk to each other? How do I get the logs to line up? How do I do correlation? And it's becoming hundreds to thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars, right, in investment just to try to get these solutions to be something, right, that would look unified in some way. So what does that really do? It creates a gap. And where are threat actors playing? They're playing within that gap for number one. So, as I'm starting to see more and more, alerts, as I'm starting to see things coming across, I don't know how to correlate that. It could be a false positive, could be a false negative, could be something that it absolutely is true, but I don't know it because I've got so much alert overload coming into me. I've got so much stuff coming at me. And then once again, right, I have these threat actors that's probably playing in the shadows that are exfilling data that I only catch when I bring another point product in to try to fill that gap in some way, shape, or form. But once again, we're having more cost, more overhead, more things going on. With the Versa One Universal SASE platform, on the other hand, this is still defense in depth, right? Well, so let's keep the terminology that's there, but it's delivered via a unified platform. Everything talks together. Everything is built on one operating system. Everything is built, or everything is purpose built to talk and work in concert at the end of the day to give you intel that is already parsed, to give you intel that's actionable. And what I mean by actionable is it's a true positive, right? Or it's a true negative. You do with that intel, right, with what you see fit. But it does provide you that ZTNA. It does provide you those SWIG-based services for things like URL filtering, things like that. It has CASB built in. Most customers I talk to have a separate CASB solution. They're offloading that somewhere else. They're trying to do some type of integration within, whether it's an SSE platform, or they're trying to say, look, I have this in SSE. How do I bring it on-prem? It's so bespoke at the end of the day, customers don't know necessarily how to properly use it because, once again, they can't properly use it due to the fact that they don't have the right solutions in place for that. Next-gen firewall service or next-gen firewall as a service being delivered from the cloud, advanced threat prevention or sandboxing, DLP being built into the solution. It's not like you have to go somewhere else. It's not like you have to bring in another point product, do some type of configuration, have some type of orchestrator trying to pull this together, right? It's all there for you. And then, of course, with Versa, right, we've expanded what SASE really means from a universal platform to include SD-WAN and SD-LAN, being able to bridge what we do, at the edge, being able to utilize SD-WAN as a medium to do easy onboarding, to do some type of easy connectivity, to give you visibility. Dan said it, right? You can't secure what you can't see. So being able to open up that visibility and be able to show you across the board what we're not just doing from a cloud perspective, but also on-prem, right? But this is primarily based around SSE today, right? So let's talk more about what we do from a ZTNA solution all the way through what's there for DLP. Also with that, right, within that SSE solution, we also do things like continuous posture assessment and adjustment. We're one of the only companies out there today that will do continuous posture assessment without having to force the client to reconnect, which means we can get the posture checks configurable as low as every 5 seconds. So the way this actually works, right? Customer or the user comes onto the environment, they authenticate. We call this EIP, or endpoint information profile, agents, right? That endpoint information profile is then fed into the to the SASE gateway. The end client's machine profile is then, or the SASE app is then published, right? Or that profile is published to that gateway. Blah. You gotta love it when you get tongue tied. The gateway then enforces that security posture, but what it does is it always communicates back into that to that end user client. So that's what we're actually checking for now. True, we can get it to low as every 5 seconds, right? Is that actually recommended? Probably not. It all depends, though, on what you're actually checking for. And the reason why we say it's probably not recommended is because if you look to the right, look at all the different posture check categories that Versa has. We have we have one of the most robust posture check solutions that is out there, because we can look for things like, your anti-malware. We can look for your EPP client and status. We can look for anti-phishing software. Do you have your firewall turned on? We can also look for a health agent potentially. Do you have disk encryption turned on? Your patch management up to date? If you're looking for every single one of these, you take a hit to that machine. You take a hit to the resources of that machine. This gets back into things like latency and so forth, right? But realistically, if you wanted to look for a couple of these, almost real time, absolutely. If you were looking for everything, you might want to push that out a little bit. But the point is that we can still do continuous posture assessment and adjustment, because if something does happen, we dynamically push to that gateway a profile or a policy that can limit that user in where they go. So that's part of that ZTNA aspect. So once again, all of this being built into one platform, not necessarily having to have that from a bespoke architecture, allows us to get time get time to remediation down to seconds, right? And not minutes and hours like you will see from another vendor.
So JT, just to reiterate, like we can dynamically change access rules based on a change in security posture.
Absolutely, we can.
Okay. Awesome. All right, let's go to number 9, right? So if your users are complaining about latency and slow app response, where can we help with that?
Well, there's a couple different things, right? So number one is, let's look at how things are actually built. Like, so there's a lot of interconnections. We may have, connectivity coming across, an MPLS or internet. We'll have that connectivity coming into our SASE fabric. We'll have connectivity coming in from, a client coming into a SASE gateway, right? That SASE fabric, everybody, is what we know as SSE. We call it a SASE fabric for one major reason. Notice how every single one of those gateways are interconnected through that dotted line. Well, the reason for that is because we use SD-WAN to interconnect our gateways, right? And what is SASE? Well, it's the introduction of SD-WAN there. We're not necessarily looking at how my DC is connected to my branch office. I want to make sure that the connectivity to that gateway and the interconnection through that gateway, right, is as fast as humanly possible. And what does SASE give us, right? And what does SD-WAN give us? It gives us that ability to be able to dynamically route you through that cloud, as you see fit, right? Or as per the fastest path, I would say, to get to cloud hypervisors, your SaaS apps, to the internet, even, across, potentially, right? Just get you as close to that particular end resource, right? And from that end user as possible. Another thing that we have is, and what we've seen in the industry today, is a lot of people are talking about digital experience monitoring. So this goes back to the reasons why we have everything interconnected. With DIM from Versa, we give you the ability to see everything. We don't necessarily just give you the ability to see from your branch office or from that end user in that branch office out to that gateway. We don't hide anything. Everything is there for your visibility. So we can see things like your client issues. We can look at low memory on a CPU. That's the reason why I brought that back to that continuous posture side. You don't necessarily want to, continually use resources. That's a latency issue, right? At the end of the day. We can also look at, Wi-Fi strength and things like that to see if there's anything from that. So if you're troubleshooting, you don't have your mean time to denial, right? It's an actual looking at, I can find out if the user has a problem in their home network, in a cafe or something of that nature, or if it might be on the wire somewhere. If let's just say, for instance, right, there is SD-WAN automatically set up inside of your environment. It might be Versa, it might be something else, right? But let's say that there is an interconnectivity there. Can I look at the underlay issues through DIM? Absolutely, I can do that. What happens if there is a problem with the gateway, whether it's a SASE gateway, whether it's a hub gateway at the branch? Can I see low system resources, anomalies, right? Security policies, maybe blocking data through DIM? Absolutely. And then finally, right, we have application server issues. So high application and server response times, potentially looking at maybe network issues from the gateway to the application server. Just got done talking to a customer about this. And one of the biggest things they said was this gives them the ability from a networking perspective to understand, is it a security issue from a troubleshooting side, or is it a networking issue? And does their team have to handle it? They have absolutely, there's actually, put or their times right for the remediation side. So their mean time to remediation for any ticket that actually comes into their system, they were doing what, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours of troubleshooting for potential anywhere users that are out there. Their time now is down to minutes. They're actually able to log in, see the solution, see exactly what's going on, see where the break is, and be able to understand if the break is, whether it's not it's in the SASE fabric, whether or not it's on-prem, or whether or not it's actually out at the user's location, or maybe the internet and just connecting into those gateways.
Hey, JT, let me just put a line under that for a second.
Sure.
So Versa SSE helps reduce latency and slow application response because our traffic engineered SASE fabric, which is what our POP network is built on,
Yep.
automatically chooses the best path for your traffic to go to from end to end, right? And it autonomously and automatically does that. That's part of the SD-WAN magic that our backbone is built on top of. And so you get that when you get Versa SSE. Is that right?
Absolutely. And then on top of that, right, there's the visibility aspect to it. Because if there is latency, we do give you the tools to be able to understand where that latency is, and then how to solve that latency at the end of the day. No matter where it's at, right, you can pick up a phone, you call Versa if it's in our environment. You can actually pinpoint to the Versa attack engineer exactly what is happening with inside the cloud and how to fix that going forward, versus there being mountains of troubleshooting for that.
Or it might be your ISP, and now you'll know, right?
Could be, absolutely.
All right, let's move on to number 8. So your current SSE has a fragmented architecture, right? How can we help with that?
Well, for number one, right, let's call the universal SASE platform what it is. It is a unified architecture at the end of the day. I talked a little bit about how this is one operating system, how everything sits inside of that one operating system. And so this is what we call Versa One, right? Because it is one operating system, one platform, right? One manager, one everything going forward. So today, a lot of our potential customers and a lot of our existing customers, believe it or not, still have that bespoke architecture where they're talking about things like, I have a NAC, I have, NetSec, I have firewalls, I might have an SSE environment, right? So, talking about, the customers today, right? They're saying, I'm trying to bridge my on-prem firewall to my SSE. I don't know where I need to put policy at. My SSE may not support certain things like my on-prem firewall does. So I'm having to really have a lot of different things out there, like I said, from that bespoke architecture side. And of course, you have a route switch, segment as well. So one of the things to look at from Versa is that with everything being unified, we also built this into a single pass architecture for one operating system. So we have the ability to actually perform all of your identity from a cloud perspective. We can do user device authentication. We do your device posturing. And then from there, we can actually define your network and application access. Once we've done that, we've put that policy in place, and we passed that packet up to the NetSec side, right? Because you said right before, this is a next gen firewall. This is what this is what we have. This is where, you get most of your URL filtering, you get your IDS, IPS, you get your antiviral, anti-malware. We have all those policies built in. But one of the best parts about Versa is that we do have a very strong routing and switching foundation. So that's where we get into where we can do NAT policies, and we're able to pass the packet faster. But one of the big things to kind of look at on that as well is not only do you get all of that security, but we can handle all traffic. We don't have to have local breakout. We don't have to have something like Teams or even this BrightTalk session or something like that, being broken out and actually having to traverse the web without being scanned. Because of the way we do QoS classification and because of the inspection that we do on traffic, we can actually handle all of that voice traffic. We can actually put QoS around that traffic and prioritize that traffic as necessary in order for those devices or those users to be able to get to their resources, right? Whether that's on the public internet or the data center.
Hey, JT, so this is the architecture that's on our cloud gateways, our POPs?
Yeah.
Is that right? All right.
Yeah,
right?
and that's what happens here, right? That's how we deliver it. So it's a great segue into this, right? Where we see, private network access. We start seeing users come into the SASE gateway, and so forth. We start understanding that, as that unified security is there, it doesn't matter whether or not you're going to your private apps, it's going to your public apps. You always get to see the exact same security being delivered across the board. So unlike other vendors who have two separate stacks or two separate environments for this, they have one dedicated for private access, they have one dedicated for public access. Because of that unified security and that unified architecture that we have with Versa One, we're able to deliver the same exact policies, the same exact security, either for your on-prem solution, right, or your on-prem apps like in your DC or even in your cloud hypervisor, as well as being able to scan that exact same traffic, right, whether or not it's going out to your SaaS or to your internet.
Nice. All right. Let's talk about number 7. If you're spending too much on your SSE solution, how can Versa help organizations with that?
Well, there's a couple different ways, right? So number one, there is reduced cost and complexity with a single pane of glass. There is so many times that I talk to customers and they're like, I'm swiveling between 7 different screens. It's like, JT, how can you help me here? It's I'm losing time. I'm having overhead costs, right? Operational costs that are there. I'm having equipment costs. I'm having everything. So how do I really consolidate a lot of this work and consolidate a lot of this I'd say infrastructure and cost and reduce that TCO and things of that nature, right? And so here's a big thing that I look at and I talk with customers is that if I could basically give you one window to be able to find a threat between all of your solutions, would that be of interest to you? And of course, their answer is yes, right? If I was able to potentially get your engineers into a situation where they can find something faster and remediate it, would that be interesting to you? And of course the answer usually is yes, right? And so with Versa, what we've done is we've said all of these things that we've brought together under one operating system, we've made sure to bring all of this under one manager. And so with that manager, just looking at what we do from Concerto, which is our single pane of glass manager, we can support the security side, and I'll talk a little bit about that SD-WAN stuff, right, that we were doing in the cloud a second ago, as well, because we can control all of that right within the one single pane of glass. So this screen right here is our security screen. It is our high level graphs. It does give you things like, top bandwidth, top rules that are being hit, destination addresses, top applications, things like that. You do get a high level view of everything that's going on. If there is a problem, things do get flagged. Things do go out to your SIM. Things also go out to things like ServiceNow, right, for ticketing and so forth. But this gives you that high level dashboard that you can look at any given point in time. Also from that, we've also tried to make management very simplistic. So looking at things like our internet protection rules, right? How we actually, do the configuration set of that within the same manager. But what's even more awesome about that is the visibility you get around your entire estate, right? So this is all of your POP locations that you may have deployed, all of your gateways within those POPs. You're actually able to see everything that's going on. If you're utilizing, SD-WAN across the board, right? We do show you that within this solution as well, so you understand how everything is being tied together, where your latency is, between your gateways, right, and so forth. And then from that, right, once again, if you're utilizing that SD-WAN, of course, it's in the cloud, and maybe even SD-WAN connectivity from Versa to connect to the cloud. We also give you a place to where you can control and manage and configure all of that as well. So this is, roughly what? 2 products, 3 products, 5 products, depending on, do you have ATP? Do you have your next gen firewall? Do you have, SD-WAN, or do you have your front end routers connecting you in? However that is, right? We consolidate all of those products into one, right? All multiple stacks into one solution with one manager and one place to go look at those analytics and those logs. From that, Dan, I know you want to talk about, how the costs are going up. I'm definitely going to let this be for you. So I'm not going to steal your thunder on it because I love what you've put together here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just our point here is just like, if you see that your costs are going up, right, because of whatever reason, right, whether it's, increases on renewals or end of life hardware that you're seeing, right, that you got to replace, kind of forced upgrades, or, if you're seeing issues with how you're tracking users, like any of those issues that are, maybe bugging you a little bit, please come talk to us. Like we will work with you to get a cost effective solution put in place, right? Let me just leave it at that point. All right. All right. Number 6. What do you do where can we help if technical support and response times are poor? Let's talk about that.
So I'm not going to go for. I'm not going to go into the Gartner, reviews as much. Dan, I definitely want your input here for the Gartner review side. I know you've been heavily engaged with Gartner and what we have
Yeah.
done there. But one of the things I will say is that our service and support, by far, is some of the best that's out there. There is another slide after this I definitely want to dive into. But Dan, talk about what the analysts at Gartner are saying about our solution. Talk about our peer reviews and things like that, coming from the one that's the CTO for IT services, right, and so forth, from the Gartner peer insights, please.
Yeah, I mean, the point here is that everyone waves their hands and says they've got good support and global support and follow the sun and everything, but the quality of that support and responsiveness is key. And so one of the areas where you can dig in and try and see how things are looking is through these Gartner peer insight reviews, which is customer submitted reviews of vendors and products. And so there's some good stuff here, and there's some mixed stuff. Like no one's perfect, right? But I think we're pretty good. And we would invite you to go and check out these peer insight reviews to dig in and find out more detail about the quality of product, but also the quality of technical support and service that we deliver as part of our solution. So we think we do a decently good job at that, and so we'd invite you to come and join us for that. All right, JT, off to you back again.
So net promoter score, right, or the NPS score. This is something that's huge in the industry right now, and this is it's actually profound when I talk to my customers, or I talk to Versa customers globally. It's you guys do very well in TAC, right? You do guys do very well in technical support, and you're willing to jump in and you're willing to help anywhere, right? As much as we possibly can. It's the reason why our net promoter score is over 40. So one of the things to point out with this is, our investors, right? They take a vested interest, right? Of course, on where we sit in the industry, what we're doing. Are we keeping customers happy? How do we retain those customers, right? And so forth. So during some of the rounds of funding, right, and so forth, we investors have went out and they've looked at what our net promoter score is for our support setup, right? Because without good support, right, customers leave, and we know this, and we want to make sure that customers are being taken care of, because like Dan said, nobody's perfect. Somebody's going to call TAC, somebody's going to call support, right? And we need to make sure that our customers are being taken care of the best way possible. 40 is almost unheard of, considering you see things like leading firewall vendors have a score of 18, SD-WAN vendors 9, cloud security vendors at 4, right? This is where you're starting to get into your SSE side of the house. Leading network vendors at 3, and then a lot of people, right, are coming down into the negatives, right? Pure play SASE vendors, for instance, right? Your SSE plus your SD-WAN negative 29, because once again, right, we highlight the fact that we don't hide anything. We show to customers everything across the board from a visibility standpoint. We allow you to be able to see it. We allow you to be able to secure it. We allow you to help us troubleshoot that. We want you to be able to call and say there is a problem with the gateway in the cloud. Other SASE vendors hide that solution on the back end. Once it enters their cloud, it's a black hole until it exits their cloud. They do show you metrics around, the entry and exit, but they don't show you where that traffic goes, right? So when you start looking at things like, your pure play SASE vendors or even SSE and so forth, a lot of that, right, becomes hidden to you, and it becomes a lot of, finger pointing, right, from a TAC perspective of who actually is at fault. And then, I've had a customer actually tell me, I asked my SSE vendor to prove to me it wasn't them, and I still never got a root cause out of that.
All right, on to number 5. So if your SSE vendor has a weak or limited backbone POP network, how can we help with that, JT?
So number one is we have over 90 pops globally, right? So the real big thing about understanding what a pop is that vendors out there will say we have hundreds or thousands of pops globally. Well, the question to ask is, okay, where is your compute location? I've worked for some of these bigger vendors, right? I will personally say is that um, when you come in and you start having latency and you start having issues because we hide where traffic goes. Because I'm having to backhaul from this onboarding pop potentially that could be in LA to a compute location that might be in Seattle, or I'm coming into an onboarding pop in Boston, for instance, and I'm having to traverse to a compute location that might be in Ashburn, Virginia, or something like that. That causes problems, right? That's a weak backbone because yes, you have a lot of pops, but you don't have a lot of compute power at the end of the day. What Versa does is that every single one of our pops, globally, right, those over 90 pops, are compute locations. So not only do you come into a pop, you have your traffic scanned right there. It's not an onboarding pop. It's not backhauled. We're not going across somebody else's fiber. We're not introducing latency and more networking and more complexity right into the environment. We're actually scanning of the traffic. We're making sure that it's either dropped, it's passed. Is it malicious? Is it benign? Right? What's going on? We're giving you that. We're parsing that out to the world, directly from that pop. Now, on top of that, we do have our pops interconnected as well. So not only are they compute locations, but they do have the traffic engineer backbone going forward as well. So if I have to get to a resource, right, I'm coming once again into somewhere like Boston, my resource is located in Seattle, we can stitch that together and we can exit you out of Seattle, right, closest to where your resource is. So that's the beauty of a strong engineered backbone, right, from a prop perspective, versus something like a weak engineered backbone where I have to travel to a compute location and then I have to hairpin out of that compute location back to that pop, or maybe even out to some other pop, right? That is nothing more than, like I said, an onboarding pop or just a point of presence in some telco's environment in somewhere.
All right. Number 4. So if your SSE solution is too complex to deploy and manage, how can we help with that, JT?
This is my favorite slide that I've ever seen in my entire life, Dan. I think it's profound in what's kind of out there in the industry today. So think about it, right? What is SSE? SSE has to have a policy decision and a policy enforcement point. Comes directly from Gartner, right? That's how they have defined it. A lot of SSE vendors put that into a singular cloud, right? They put that into a singular solution. But from a complexity standpoint, pure SSE players, they do things like IPsec or GRE or site-to-site tunnels, right, between the branch, the HQ, and so forth into that cloud. This gets back to what Dan was talking about before. There's a lot of IPsec tunnels, right, a lot of site-to-site that's out there. That causes latency. That's a lot of operational overhead, on your bare metal, right, at your branch coming back into the cloud. So you're hindered there for number one. And you have to manually monitor these. This isn't something that's just monitored right through the SSE solution. So if something's happening, if you have a tunnel that's flapping, right, for instance, what's the worst part about that? Well, that site is completely down unless I'm having multiple IPsec tunnels out there, and then I'm creating, once again, more overhead to that. I have a management portal that might be out there. That management portal might be multiple management portals. It might be a singular management portal, right? But it's only for the SSE solution. And then what I love more than anything, though, is look at the customer data center side. Look at the things like maybe an access broker VM. They might have an incident responder VM, an index VM. They have app connectors. They have log streaming VMs and multiple log streaming VMs, one for encrypted logs and one for unencrypted logs, right? SSE is cloud delivered. We all know that SSE should be cloud delivered. I have app connectors in my cloud, right? Whether it be for AWS or Azure. The one thing I always tell a customer is this is a lot of things that I have to put on prem at the end of the day, a lot of virtual machines or a lot of even physical hardware I have to spin up for a cloud delivered, solution moving forward. Like, why do I have to have all of this stuff on prem just to get a cloud delivered solution? So it's very complex. And on top of that, you don't have the ability to manage this. You might be able to put firewall rules around it in some way, but you can't go in and put traditional means like antiviral or EPP on that. With Versa, right, it's simplistic, right? And so we can connect you via the same way. We can do IPsec tunnels, but we do offer you the Versa OS. You can use that as a router. You can use that utilizing SD-WAN to connect into those SASE gateways. And it's really easy, like when you do that, because number one is we give you measurement of KPIs on all available paths. So if you're connecting to multiple gateways with a Versa solution, right, we'll manage that, right? We see that. We can redirect you to gateways as necessary. But what's really awesome is how we do that SD-WAN in the cloud, right? In that SASE fabric. So let's say, for instance, I'm going out to AWS, right? I'm having a great time. I'm traversing the cloud, and now there's an issue with that particular connection, right, between two SASE gateways. We can dynamically route you through another gateway if necessary, or even hairpin you back out through the cloud, depending on what is the fastest path, right, to get you there. So decisions are made automatically for you, because number one is we want to make sure that we're giving you the least amount of latency possible. We also show you when and how this happens, right, within our solution. This allows you to see, number one, again, your entire state. If there is a problem going on, where your traffic is going, why your traffic is going there. We let you see those metrics, right? So this is SD-WAN magic on the backside, right, to be able to give you latency, decrease your complexity, because this is point and click and it connects. We don't have to have IPsec tunnels that I have to manage pre-shared keys, and I have to manage, the overhead, and then I have to put some type of solution on looking for, is the tunnel flapping, right? Am I seeing that in my SIM, and do I have to do a lot of customization on? This actually just shows up within our solution, and if there is an issue, it's automatically redirected for you, unlike what a traditional site-to-site tunnel does, Dan.
All right. Well, so JT, let me see if I can just paraphrase that one for 1 second. So, if you're using an existing legacy SSE vendor and you're spending a ton of time and energy managing and maintaining hundreds or thousands of IPsec tunnels to connect to your SSE vendor's gateway, come talk to us and take advantage of our SD-WAN magic for connectivity, which just automatically connects and maintains and manages that connection for you. Right?
Easy.
Takes a lot of administrative burden off. Is that right?
Easy. And on top of that, it's not like you have to come to us to get SD-WAN between your offices. This is just for ease of onboarding into the cloud, if that is what you want, right? Yeah. And then on top of that, it's all managed. It's monitored by that single platform, right? That Concerto manager. So if there is a problem, you get to see it. If there's a problem, once again, in the gateways, you get to call TAC and tell them where that problem is.
All right, let's keep moving. Number 3. You haven't seen much innovation coming out of your SSE vendor. Let's talk about that, JT.
Yeah, so, we talked about DIM. We've talked about what we can do with SD-WAN magic, right? And how things are being built on the back end of that. Let's talk a little bit more about, what we're doing in the realm of IoT security, right? We'll also talk about what we're doing in behavioral analytics as well, because, we're seeing this influx of IoT as we move more and more to the cloud, right? We're seeing it in medical. We're seeing it in manufacturing. We're seeing it in just the enterprise network with how we're bringing in security systems, badge readers, things like that. So the problem with a lot of IoT security is we have to have a lot of on-premise things, once again, to have IoT security that may or may not be delivered from the cloud, right? I'm having to deploy things. So what we have the ability to do from an SSE perspective is automated device discovery. Remember when I talked about the fact that we can look at everything? You don't have to have local breakout. Well, with that, we can do automated device discovery. We can do identification and fingerprinting of each one of those devices. Because of that, we can now do risk-based segmentation as necessary. So if I have a facility that may have a camera that has a SIM card in it that actually has to come back into my environment, right, in some way, I can do risk-based segmentation based upon that. I can also give that least privileged access or enforcement based upon that risk-based segmentation. And I can also do behavioral analytics to understand, what that device does, learn what that device does, and then be able to track that device. So if it does something that it shouldn't do in some way, right, I can actually end up blocking that or putting some type of security around it. With UEBA and that behavioral analytics, we've expanded that also into users, right, devices, and so forth. So the way that actually ends up working is that, let's say that I'm a new employee, and for the next 6 months, I go to youtube.com every day for lunch, right? And this is something very simple that we can look at. I go through the single pass architecture. I go out to my youtube.com. I'm always talking to my cloud gateways versus analytics. It's learning what I do, right, over time. So what happens when I accidentally type in youtube.cu instead of youtube.com? It takes the same path. Everything talks the same way it did before, but now there's a decision that has to be made because let's say Cuba is an embargoed country. Because of that, I now may have done something very risky. So I can take multiple different actions, right, at any given point in time. Just some, for example, maybe I want to mirror the user's traffic. Maybe it was benign, and I goofed up and typed in something like .cu, or maybe something went out to that website, maliciously. I can also enforce restricted access because this gets back into that continuous posture assessment that we were talking about before, right? Where I can actually deploy, dynamic policies in real time down to the gateways to be able to restrict where I'm going and what I'm doing. And maybe I'll also invalidate cookies, right, for certain SaaS access or certain SaaS apps, right? Because you know what, I might be doing something strange, but I definitely don't want you inside of my SaaS apps to be able to exfil some type of data. So that's the behavioral analytics side that versus bringing to the market that we're really not seeing anywhere else right now.
All right. Fantastic innovation, and there's more. So we'd be happy to show you more. Let me briefly, let me just cut to the chase. But we've got a set of SSE demo days. If you want to see more, come and get a live demo, interactive demo, and we'll talk more about that at the end. But let's talk about number two. If your SSE solution has limited reporting and analytics, JT, how can we help with that?
Well, number one is we have deep forensic detail, right? And so this is just looking at a screenshot, right? We looked at the, Concerto and looked at that reporting for the graphs earlier. This is just some of the, some of the alerts, right, that are coming out from an antivirus log, for instance, right? Within Concerto itself. So we can see the alert, we can see the appliance, we see the threat severity. Yes, we are looking at ICAR here. We're looking at a demo system and so forth. We see the user who is actually passing that across. But what's even more, I would say, amazing about this is you click on the magnifying glass, you get to dive deep into what that actually is, right? What that threat is, based upon that hash. And I can see everything based upon that hash too, right? If you look here, we have over 90 pages of details, right? That is being produced, right, and potentially streamed from our solution into a customer SIM. Now, what's really amazing about this is that a lot of solutions, number one, does not do real time streaming into a SIM. It has to go to their data lake, and then it has to be parsed from their data lake. We can real time stream from our gateways into a customer's on-premise SIM. What's even more amazing about that is imagine having all of this data at your fingertips, being streamed into a SIM, right, or some type of log collector, or maybe even directly into an XDR solution. So you can find patient zero. You don't necessarily just have to go and find, the ancillary, after effects of something that's going on. I can actually go down, find patient zero, remediate patient zero and out, understand when it happened, how it happened, where it happened, right? Get those details, right? And have that deep integration, right, into some type of XDR solution, for that visibility.
Awesome. All right. So we've arrived. Number one. So if your SSE vendor has a weak SASE roadmap, JT, let's talk about where we can help there.
So this is actually really awesome for us, right? So we've talked a lot about, different things that we have DIM. We've talked a lot about what we do from SSE, things like ATP, what we're doing from, a little bit around the SD-WAN and how we've built our backbone. We talked about that single pass architecture, right? That Versa One side of the house. So realistically, this is where we get to really announce, Versa One, the universal SASE platform, right? Versa One is nothing more than, a combination of everything that we've ever done, right? It really is bringing everything, like I said before, and really kind of focusing on the one platform, right, that does everything. It's almost like Lord of the Rings, Dan. It's like the one ring to rule them all at the end of the day, right? And so what we have is we have a solution, right, that gives us, the ability to have, unified threat, right? It gives us the ability to have anything and everything we can possibly think of. We do that in a unified platform. platform, right? It gives us the one console, the one policy, the one data lake, the one OS. It gives us a zero trust, on-prem, both on-prem and off-prem. We have threat protection built into this, data security and so forth. But we also have, an AI-powered solution on the back end of that gives us threat detection, not just threat protection. That gives us the ability to do our threat hunting, right? With all of those logs that I just showed, being able to, once again, have that into your XDR solution and so forth, being able to give you network optimization, real-time responses, right? It's not something that's very delayed. We're trying to give real-time and near real-time response now. We're all powering that, right, through AI ops. The Versa One platform is the combination, like I said before, of what we do from Secure SD-WAN. It is what we bring into the LAN as well from Secure SD-LAN, and of course, the Security Service Edge. It's how we bring things together around unified SASE, how we build everything. This is how we can break down the consumability, right, for customers. Customers don't have to consume Versa One all in one chunk. You can consume today the Security Service Edge. You can utilize your existing routers. You can utilize your existing firewalls to connect into us. We will provide you, right, a roadmap on how do you, consume SSE today. How do you move into SD-WAN tomorrow? How do you turn on SD-WAN for your interconnectivity? Once again, can we utilize just the Versa OS to do that easy onboarding today? Yes. Might it be on your roadmap to expand to something more later? Is it on your roadmap to potentially look at bringing this into the edge and bringing security as close down to that end user as humanly possible? Absolutely, it could be that. That's part of the roadmap, right? That's part of what we're doing, with the SSE side and really moving in, like you said before, what is the next generation, which is SASE, right, going forward. And then being able to say, take that unified SASE, take that singular console, take that singular manager, and be able to utilize that as the cornerstone of your security infrastructure moving forward. And Dan, I know that you love, what we're doing, what we call the spider diagram and what the universal SASE platform is. So definitely, I'll let you take it away, and I'll let you end the presentation today with this.
Got it. Yeah. Thanks, JT. And hey, so just, this is just the closing. Like we hope you've learned a few interesting things today. We think that, our company and our universal SASE platform delivering this SSE solution can really help a lot of organizations. So if any of this stuff struck a chord with you, please come and visit us. So, at the end of the day, we'd love to at least walk through and see if we can help solve some of your problems, right? So if you look at that blue box at the bottom, this is kind of the open invitation. We are running monthly SSE demo days. If this stuff resonated, come and check out one of these SSE demo days with us. It's interactive, right? You can sign up at versanetworks.com/SSE demo. We'll also send this stuff out in email as a follow-up on any of these dates, right? We've got stuff scheduled over the next 6 months. Come and get an interactive demo and Q&A kind of environment with our technical experts on SSE. Drill into some of the things that might be interesting or you have questions about, and see if Versa might be something that can help you out, right? We'd love to have you join us. But with that, let me thank you again for your time. JT, thank you for for the presentation here. And we hope you have a great day. That's the end of our show.
Thanks, everybody. Really do appreciate your time.